The wedding of my sister-in-law, Sarah, was held in Connecticut. At the venue, I discovered that mine was the only seat that hadn't been prepared. Joey, my husband, smirked and said, "Oops, looks like we miscounted the seats." The whole family chuckled coldly. My chest tightened, but I responded calmly, "I see. I understand everything now." Then I turned and walked out of the venue. Joey's cruel smile haunted me. Humiliation surged through my body, but I didn't cry. Instead, a strange calm settled over me. I took out my phone and opened an app. Let's see how long it takes before they realize what I've done. My name is Lindsay Ford. 15 years ago, I was just a poor girl, growing up in a small rural town. I earned a scholarship to a state university and graduated from its hospitality program. Then, I made a name for myself in Boston as a successful event planner. From high-end celebrity parties to complicated corporate functions and difficult weddings, I became the go-to planner for the East Coast elite, known for my precision and creativity. When I was 27, the Ford family took notice. It was during the mayor's wife's birthday party, an event I had planned. That's where Joey Ford saw me at work, watching this determined young woman orchestrate a flawless event. "Were you the one who planned that amazing party?" he asked me afterward. I heard it was the work of a very talented woman. That encounter led to us dating, and eventually, I became deeply involved with the Ford family, an old money dynasty in Connecticut known for its investment banking and real estate empire. They held tremendous influence across the East Coast. A year into the relationship, Joey proposed. As I began attending social events with the Ford family, I noticed a shift. Mary, Joey's mother, would introduce me to her friends by saying, "Lindsay's a sweet, simple girl. Though of course you can't really hide where someone comes from." She'd make subtle digs about my modest background at every opportunity. I started to feel uneasy about how Joey's family viewed me, but I ignored the warning signs out of my longing for a real family. Because Joey seemed different from his sister and mother, more approachable, less obsessed with bloodlines. He genuinely seemed to admire my career and love me regardless of my background. To a girl who came from nothing, the idea of being loved and accepted into a prestigious family felt like a dream. But after the wedding, my place in the family became clear. No matter how impressive my accomplishments were, no matter how successful my events became, the Fords always questioned my methods, dismissed my opinions, and took credit for my achievements. During family gatherings, my ideas were heard but never truly listened to. My excellence was chalked up to hard work, never talent. At first, Joey was sympathetic toward Mary's behavior. But over time, he stopped defending me. All he would say was, "It's just how my mom is. Don't let it get to you." But I did let it get to me, and things only got worse with time. Then there was Sarah, Joey's younger sister by 5 years. The epitome of a spoiled daddy's girl, raised with unconditional indulgence. Sarah always acted friendly toward me, but there was a calculated coldness behind her smiles. She never truly saw me as family either. Last year, when Sarah announced her engagement, Mary immediately approached me. "Lindsay, you'll plan Sarah's wedding, won't you? Your family, it's only natural." It wasn't a request. It was a command. There was no respect for my career, just the expectation that I would work for free, like a tool at their disposal. Planning Sarah's wedding should have been a proud moment. It was to be a grand 3-day event representing the family's social standing. I poured everything into it, leveraging my network in the hospitality industry, doing everything I could to create a flawless experience. But during preparations, I uncovered the truth about the Ford family's financial situation. Late payments to vendors. Phone calls from suppliers asking for overdue deposits. When I brought it up to Joey, he told me the family's accountant was just being cautious with the wedding budget. But I had seen the financial documents open on his laptop. The trust fund was empty. The house had a second mortgage. The investment firm was nearing default. Still, I continued with the planning. When needed, I used funds from my own company to cover deposits. Then, on the morning we were leaving for Connecticut, a message popped up on Joey's phone while he was in the shower. Normally I respected his privacy. But that morning, something made me look. It was a message from Gina. Can't wait to see you this weekend. Have you told your family yet? Before I realized it, I had opened Joey's message thread with his ex-girlfriend, Gina Brown. It went back months, details of their reconciliation, discussions of the future, and Gina's pregnancy. 4 months along. They'd been seeing each other for 6 months. I took screenshots, sent them to myself, and deleted all traces. Then I packed my bag, put on my best smile, and got in the car with the Ford family pretending I knew nothing. As the autumn sun cast a golden glow over Connecticut's countryside, we arrived at the wedding venue. I had arranged every aspect of the weekend festivities, from Joey's colleagues in finance, to Mary's socialite friends, to Sarah's classmates and a few close family acquaintances. But as soon as we stepped out of the car, Mary turned to me and said, "I specifically gave instructions for the seating chart, Lindsay. Why does this look so different?" I swallowed my frustration. I arranged it based on the guest list to optimize flow and photo angles. But she wasn't listening. She was already whispering to Joey, a secretive conversation that, like always, excluded me. My guest suite was luxurious, overlooking the venue's garden, filled with fresh flowers from Mary's greenhouse, and stocked with bottles of the Ford family's favorite wine. But the moment we entered, Joey's phone rang. He stepped out into the hallway to whisper into it. The rehearsal dinner held at the official venue I had personally coordinated was the first clear sign of my exclusion. Just before the meal, the seating arrangement was mysteriously changed, and I was assigned to the staff table, far from the family. At the main table, they laughed over inside jokes and memories, almost all from family vacations I'd never been invited to. When I tried to join a conversation about the wedding details, Sarah interrupted. "Oh, Lindsay, by the way, we're doing a bridesmaids brunch tomorrow morning. It's just a tradition, really. You'd probably find it boring. Maybe you could use that time to go over the final prep checklist? That's your area of expertise, isn't it?" That same pattern continued for 2 days. Each morning, I'd wake up to find Joey already gone, just a hastily scribbled note saying he'd gone golfing with his father. One morning, he left in such a rush that he forgot to lock his briefcase. It was an opportunity I couldn't ignore. Inside, I found what I had feared most: confirmation. Drafted by the Ford family's attorney, the documents outlined divorce proceedings dated a month ago. The proposed asset division excluded me entirely. But the most damning piece was a handwritten memo detailing how to orchestrate my inappropriate behavior during Sarah's wedding to paint me as an unstable, problematic wife. I took photos of every page with my phone, my hands trembling. It was all there in black and white: a carefully staged exit of the unfit wife, a plan to sever me from the family while preserving their dignity. Sarah's wedding wasn't just a celebration. It was my termination ceremony. Instead of confronting Joey, I turned my fury toward building a case. Bank statements showing large transfers into Joey's personal account. Emails discussing how to liquidate trust assets before the audit becomes public. A handwritten note from Mary to Joey read, "Once the unpleasant Lindsay matter is resolved, the real family can inherit properly." I was rattled, but I kept on my professional mask, supervising the wedding prep like nothing had changed. In truth, I was quietly preparing my legal counterattack. The morning of Sarah's wedding dawned clear and crisp. I rose early and slipped out of the room quietly so as not to wake anyone. While reviewing the final schedule in the bridal suite, I overheard Mary's voice through a slightly open door in the adjacent room. Her commanding tone was unmistakable. "There will be 4 family members seated, not 5, she said into the phone. "I don't care what the original plan was, this is the final seating arrangement." After a pause, she added, "The daughter-in-law is not included. This is a blood family matter, I'm sure you understand. There's no need to explain anything if she decides to leave." My blood ran cold. The pieces finally clicked into place. This wasn't neglect or last-minute change, it was the heart of their strategy. A public humiliation, designed to make my departure look like my own decision. I closed my tablet, gathered my documents, and returned to my room. Then I picked up my phone and launched a new plan. If the Ford family wanted a wedding to remember, I would make sure it was unforgettable. Just not in the way they intended. I arrived at the main chapel an hour before the other guests. The Connecticut countryside was glowing in the late afternoon sun. I personally checked every detail from the engraved place cards to the bride's favorite flower arrangements. "Is everything to your liking, Ms. Ford?" "Patty?" the venue coordinator asked. "Perfect," I replied, knowing this would be the last event I ever managed for the Ford family. Despite everything, my professional pride refused to accept anything less than excellence. Back in my room, I changed into the navy blue suit I had bought specifically for this day. With calm precision, I applied my makeup and looked into the mirror. They hadn't broken me. They had sharpened me. The Ford family had agreed to gather in the main lounge before heading to the chapel together. When I arrived on time, they were all waiting. "You look very professional," Lindsay Mary said, offering a stiff handshake. "We're just waiting for the photographer." During the short walk to the chapel, the family casually brought up the meeting they'd had earlier that morning. Of course, I hadn't been invited. They discussed it openly in front of me, without the slightest attempt at discretion. At the chapel doors, Joey placed his hand on my shoulder. What once felt like a gesture of affection now seemed like part of the stagecraft for the cameras. The doors opened, revealing the stunning ceremony space I had designed. Under the crystal chandeliers, the venue sparkled with elegance. Mary entered first and was greeted with polite applause from her peers. One by one, the guests moved to their assigned seats, each placed according to the layout I had created. The official family table. I followed Joey. As I approached, I realized something chilling: every seat had been filled. There was no space left for me. No reservation. No acknowledgement. No place in the family. I froze. It was the perfect picture of exclusion. "Is something wrong?" Mary asked innocently, just loud enough for everyone to hear. "There seems to be a mistake," I replied, my voice far calmer than I felt. "There's no seat for me at the family table." The scene unfolded exactly as they had choreographed it: puzzled glances, hushed whispers, Joey stepping forward, pretending to be surprised. "That's strange," Sarah murmured, glancing at the seating arrangement. Joey cleared his throat. "Probably just a miscommunication with the venue staff." Then came Joey's line, delivered with a calculated familiarity that sent a chill down my spine. He chuckled softly. "Maybe we miscounted." The family nodded, not theatrically, which would have been too obvious, but with a quiet consensus shared among those in on the joke. At that moment, everything came into sharp focus. This was deliberate humiliation, staged in a public setting carefully chosen to prevent any confrontation: a wedding, of all places. It was the foundation for the story they'd later tell: poor Lindsay, who couldn't handle the pressure of the Ford legacy. My gaze slowly moved across the room, meeting each face. Mary, triumphant beneath her cool, financial polish. Joey, complicit and uncomfortable. Sarah and her fiancé, clearly enjoying the spectacle. And the rest of the Ford's people, who once called me family, now watching me with the detached amusement of investors observing a failed venture. I could have made a scene. I could have demanded my place and exposed their plot in front of the guests. But that's exactly what they expected, what they were prepared for. Instead, I straightened my shoulders, lifted my chin, and spoke the words that would mark the beginning of my reclamation of power. "So that's how it is. I understand completely." Simple. Devastating in its clarity. Their smiles faltered. Joey's confident expression twisted into uncertainty. I was no longer following their script. "I'll be leaving," I added, turning away with the same composure that had once shielded me throughout our marriage. "Lindsay, don't be dramatic," Joey called after me. "We can find another seat." I didn't respond. I walked calmly out of the hall, nodding politely to the staff who had witnessed my humiliation. In the car, I finally exhaled. By the time I reached the main road, the trembling in my hands had stopped. A small downtown cafe served as the perfect vantage point. I ordered a black coffee and took out my phone. This was the moment I had prepared for a window of freedom, while the Ford family celebrated what they thought was a clean, successful extraction of an unfit wife. First, I sent an emergency notification to the event coordinator, Patty, along with the instructions we had pre-arranged as a contingency. Attached were documents proving my authority as the lead event manager and financial overseer, along with confirmation of an immediate fund freeze. Then the reception venue, the hotel, the caterers, florist, and photographer. One by one, I froze all transactions and cut off payments made through my company's credit accounts. With every action, I felt lighter. Joey's messages began rolling in, starting off irritated, turning confused, and finally spiraling into desperation as he realized the scope of my retaliation. I ignored them all. 30 minutes after leaving the venue, I finished my coffee and paid the bill. It was time for the final act. I drove back to the Ford wedding venue and entered through a side entrance. Patty greeted me with a worried expression. "Mizu Ford, are you sure about this?" "I am, Patty," I said, handing her a sealed legal envelope. "This includes confirmation of the fund freeze and the cancellation of my financial guarantee for today's expenses. When should we inform them?" "In 5 minutes. I'd like to watch quietly." She led me to a small alcove near the service entrance, a perfect vantage point to observe the Ford family's table. They were toasting Sarah champagne flutes raised, faces glowing with smug satisfaction. My phone buzzed. A message from Joey. "Lindsay, where are you? Stop being childish. Come back." Then another. "Mom is upset." I didn't respond. Instead, I sent a message to the hotel where the family was staying. My phone buzzed again. "The hotel just called. They said our reservation has been canceled." "What the hell are you doing? This isn't funny. Fix it. Now." I texted Patty, "Proceed." From my hidden lookout, I watched her approach the table with 2 staff members. She bent down to speak softly to Sarah, seated at the head beside Mary. Sarah's expression changed first from joy to confusion, then suspicion. She pulled out a credit card, speaking more urgently. Patty shook her head apologetically and showed her something on a tablet. By now, the entire room sensed something was wrong. Mary set down her fork, her usual composure cracking. Joey stared at his phone, likely reading my final message. "All wedding funds are now frozen. All weekend arrangements have been canceled. Your affair with Gina and her pregnancy will soon be public. Enjoy the wedding cake." The scene unfolded like a perfectly choreographed ballet of chaos. Joey stood up, his face flushed with either rage or shame. Mary's hand shot up to clutch her pearl necklace, as if it might somehow steady her. Sarah leaned toward her groom, whispering furiously. But Joey remained frozen in his seat, all color drained from his face. Unlike the others, he understood the full implications. My phone buzzed. It was Joey, this time calling instead of texting. I declined the call and watched as he suddenly pushed back from the table and stood up. "This time," I answered. "Lindsay," he hissed, his voice a mix of anger and panic. "What the hell are you doing?" "Exactly what you planned," I replied coolly. "Which is why I have no obligation to uphold your little celebration. You have to fix this. Do you understand how humiliating this is for Sarah, for all of us?" "Oh, I understand perfectly, Joey. That was the point. Where are you?" His voice shifted, desperation creeping in. "Let me explain everything about Gina, about everything." "Oh? What would you like to explain, Joey?" "That I saw the financial statements? That I read the emails? That I know the Ford empire is crumbling? That you've misused company funds and gotten your ex-girlfriend pregnant?" His sharp intake of breath confirmed what I already knew. "That was confidential," he whispered. "Right. So were Gina's messages about the pregnancy. So was the memo detailing how to stage my inappropriate behavior at Sarah's wedding. So was the seating arrangement that deliberately excluded me." Silence on the other end. Back at the venue, I could see Patty speaking quietly to the entire table. Several guests were now watching with barely concealed curiosity. The Ford family's disgrace had become a public spectacle, exactly what they had once planned for me. "Lindsay, please," Joey said, his voice stripped of all former authority. "You don't know what this will do to us." "I know exactly what it will do. That's why I did it. We can fix this. Just come back." "No, Joey. I don't think we can." I ended the call and stepped out of my hiding spot. It was time for my final appearance as a Ford. As I approached the table, all 4 heads turned toward me. Mary, Joey, Sarah, and the groom. Their faces were a mix of shock, anger, fear, and disbelief. Mary spoke first, her voice trembling with fury. "How dare you ruin Sarah's wedding?" I smiled, feeling a strange, calm detachment. "I learned from the best, Mary. After all, this is exactly what you planned for me, isn't it? Public humiliation. A staged exit. The only difference is I rewrote the ending." Joey stood up. "This is outrageous. You had no right." "I had every right." I cut him off. "Every contract. Every financial guarantee. Every vendor agreement was under my name or my company's authority. All I did was enforce the terms." "You'll regret this," Sarah spat. "That's where you're wrong," I said, locking eyes with Joey. "I have all the copies. The misused funds, the hidden transfers, the fraudulent investments, and the messages with Gina. The pregnancy confirmation. I'm sure the Financial Commission and your social circles will find them fascinating." Their faces drained of color as the reality sank in. And in that moment I felt no victory, no vindication. Only a deep, profound sense of release. As I turned my back on the Ford family for the last time, I left Connecticut the next morning flying first class back to Boston. Behind me, I left a family in free fall, their carefully constructed legacy collapsing in real time. Through colleagues in the hospitality industry, I later learned that the Fords had to put up Mary's Cartier bracelet as collateral to cover the wedding costs until the wire transfers came through. By morning, word had already spread across Connecticut's financial circles. The prestigious Ford family was in financial distress. My phone flooded with messages, some threatening, some pleading. "Joey, this is a divorce issue. Our lawyers will be in touch." Mary's message was the most vicious: "You were always an outsider." This vindictive display only proves what I've said all along. But it was Joey's chain of increasingly frantic messages that told the real story of a family in freefall. "You have no idea what you've done." My mother had a mild heart attack. Key people in the industry saw everything. "Do you realize what this means for our reputation?" "Please, Lindsay, I need to talk to you." I didn't respond to any of the messages. Instead, I forwarded all the financial documents I had collected to my event company's legal department, with clear instructions to keep them secure until needed. When I arrived back at my apartment in Boston, I hired a legal document service to begin the formal process of separating assets. I took only what was undeniably mine: my hospitality books, my diploma, my professional awards. Everything else gifts from the family. Anything tied to my marriage I left behind. A week later, the Connecticut Business Tribune published an article titled, "Ford Investment Group Under Review." The piece cited financial misconduct and ongoing inquiries from the Financial Commission. Joey showed up at my event company 2 weeks after I'd returned from Connecticut unannounced. He looked exhausted, his polished air of privilege replaced by something closer to true desperation. "I need to come home," he said as soon as he entered my office. "This isn't a negotiation tactic, Joey. This is permanent." He sat down without invitation, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "The Financial Commission is investigating my father's firm. 2 of our partners have pulled out. My mother had to resign from the charitable board." "That sounds like a Ford problem," I said. "Not mine. It is my problem when I'm holding evidence that you deliberately excluded me from financial decisions and misused company funds to set me up," I said, allowing myself a small smile. His composure shattered completely. Joey sank into the office chair, head in his hands. "I never wanted it to end like this." "What did you want, Joey? To marry me for my event planning skills? To use me to manage your family's finances while you got your ex-girlfriend pregnant?" "It wasn't like that in the beginning," he said quietly. "I loved you. But not enough to stand up to your family. Not enough to be honest about your affair and Gina's pregnancy." A heavy silence settled between us. Outside, rain began to tap gently against the windows of my event firm, smaller than the Ford estate, but mine. Paid for with a career I'd built with no Ford money, no Ford connections. "I'll give you whatever you want," Joey said finally. "Just hand over the documents and sign an NDA." And that's when I realized, after 5 years, They still didn't understand me. They still thought I could be bought. I don't want your money, Joey. I want my independence. I want the truth to matter. I stood, signaling that the conversation was over. The documents stay with my legal team unless you try to drag me down with you. That's between you and your conscience. I hope you become a better man than you were a husband. After he left, I stood by the window, watching the rain fall harder. The scandal unfolded over the coming weeks. The Connecticut Business Tribune ran a more detailed expose on Ford Investment Group's financial misconduct. Longtime clients quietly withdrew their investments. Gina's pregnancy scandal rocked social circles when her affair with Joey became public. 6 months later, it was all over. Joey was permanently barred from the industry by the Financial Commission. Ford Investment Group shut down. Their Connecticut mansion was seized by creditors. Mary was forced to move into a modest apartment. Joey and Gina's relationship ended before the baby was born. He left the state alone. The once prestigious Ford family had completely crumbled. Their name was no longer whispered in East Coast social circles. And yet my business thrived. Despite the scandal, perhaps because of it, my reputation soared. Clients, who once questioned my background, now praised my integrity and transparency. The story that spread wasn't about an ungrateful wife. It was about a professional who refused to be used and discarded. Today, I'm in Italy, planning a wedding for a celebrity couple. Overseeing a flawless ceremony at a luxurious villa in Tuscany, leading my hospitality team, and surrounded by genuine joy within reach, I realized something unexpected. I was happy, not despite being rejected by their family, but because of it. The Ford family had tried to make me feel indebted, to cast me as a footnote in their grand legacy, but instead, they had unintentionally set me free to reclaim my worth. By losing what I thought I wanted, I found what I truly needed. Not the acceptance of a family determined to exclude me, but the courage to choose a path built on my own merit. And as I raised my clipboard toward the Tuscan sunset, I gave a quiet nod of thanks to the empty seat, the one that had shown me exactly where I belonged.